This is the National Occult Archives of the British Museum. My name is Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Tonight, I present 13 haunted London ghost stories unsealed by the British Museum, spanning the 12th through to the 19th centuries. These documented accounts feature testimonies from those in religious life, physicians, constables, and ordinary citizens who encountered the unexplainable. The files were recovered from churches, palaces, and institutions across London. Please support my efforts by liking and subscribing. With that said, let's begin. Turn down the world, embrace the darkness, and let the forgotten be heard. Case file NOA 1723. A classification. Physician's medical record. Date of statement 9th March 1723. Location Bethlem Royal Hospital, Moorfields, London. Medical record of patient observation. I, Dr. Edmund Hartley, physician at Bethlem Royal Hospital, record this most disturbing case for medical examination. The patient arrived on the 5th of March, brought by constables from Spitalfields. She had been found wandering Brick Lane at dawn, speaking words no English woman should know. Her speech was Latin, yet she claimed no education beyond basic letters. The phrases she repeated were liturgical, used only in exorcism rites. I consulted with Father Morrison, who confirmed their authenticity. The patient's eyes would roll backward when the speaking began. Her voice deepened impossibly, as though another spoke through her throat. She knew nothing of these episodes upon returning to herself. We restrained her gently, fearing she might harm herself in these fits. On the 7th, she spoke for 3 hours without ceasing. The Latin poured forth in perfect ecclesiastical pronunciation. Father Morrison recorded the phrases, prayers meant to bind demons, not release them. Between episodes, she was a gentle soul, confused and frightened. She remembered only darkness and a presence pressing against her thoughts. The other patients grew agitated when her speaking began. Several claimed to see a shadow standing behind her during the fits. One elderly man refused to enter the ward, crossing himself repeatedly. The nurses reported objects moving in her cell when left alone. A water pitcher would be found across the room each morning. The crucifix, hung above her bed, was discovered face down on 3 occasions. On the 8th, she fell silent for 12 hours. When she woke, she asked why her throat pained her so terribly. That evening, the speaking resumed with renewed intensity. She recited passages from texts kept only in Vatican archives. I have no explanation for knowledge she could never have possessed. The fits continue as I write this record. Father Morrison performs blessings daily, but they provide only temporary relief. The presence, whatever it may be, shows no sign of departing. The patient weakens with each episode, though her voice remains strong. I fear what may emerge if this continues unchecked. Dr. Edmund Hartley, physician, Bethlem Royal Hospital, Moorfields, London. 9th March, 1723 archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Document recovered from Bethlem Hospital records during demolition. Patient records end abruptly 3 days after this entry. Father Morrison's journals, held separately at Westminster Cathedral Archives, reference the same case but offer no resolution. The Latin phrases recorded match no known exorcism rite. End of file. Case file NOA 1681M. Classification Night Watchman's Report. Date of statement 22nd November 1681. Location Tower of London, London. Incident report of Night Watch. I, Thomas Blackwell, Night Watchman of the Tower of London, set down this account as true witness. My duties take me through the White Tower each night between midnight and dawn. On the night of the 20th November, I heard footsteps on the floor above. No person should have been present at that hour. I climbed the stone stairs with lantern raised. The footsteps continued ahead of me, always just beyond sight. They moved with purpose, as though someone paced the same route repeatedly. I called out, announcing myself as watchman. The footsteps stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt heavy, as though something waited. I continued my patrol, finding all doors secured and rooms empty. Upon descending, the footsteps began again above. The pattern repeated throughout the night. Movement when I departed, silence when I approached. The following night, I brought my fellow watchman, Robert Mills, as witness. We both heard the pacing clearly. It moved through the chapel of St. John, where no mortal tread could echo so. Robert climbed to investigate while I remained below. He found no living soul, yet I heard the footsteps continue around him. He reported a coldness in the chapel that had not been present before. When he reached to touch the altar, a force pushed him backward. He swears by all that is holy, that invisible hands pressed against his chest. We completed our watch together, both hearing the relentless pacing above. On the third night, I went alone again, determined to understand. The footsteps led me to the same location each time, the chapel entrance. There, the coldness was most intense. My breath formed clouds in the air, though November had been mild. The footsteps would approach to within feet of where I stood. I could hear them clearly, sense the presence of something near. Yet nothing revealed itself to my sight. At 3 a.m, I heard a voice. It spoke no words, only a sound like wind through distant trees. The pacing stopped then, but the presence remained. I felt watched throughout the remainder of my duties. This phenomenon continues each night I stand watch. Other guards report the same occurrences, though many refuse to patrol alone. The footsteps never cease their eternal circuit. Thomas Blackwell, Night Watchman, Tower of London, London 22nd November, 1681. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft Tower records contain 17 similar reports spanning 1681 to 1689, all describing identical phenomena in the White Tower. Modern investigations have recorded unexplained sounds in the same location. The chapel contains several burial sites of executed nobles, though none can be definitively linked to these manifestations. End of file. Case file NOA 1547B. Classification: Constable's Investigation Record. Date of statement: 14th August 1547. Location: Charterhouse, Clerkenwell, London. Official record of investigation Y. Constable William Thorne. Document this investigation at the request of Prior Edmund. The Charterhouse monks report disturbances in their library for the past fortnight. Books are found open to specific pages each morning. The texts are always religious, scripture or theological works. The pages concern passages about death and judgment. Prior Edmund first noticed the phenomenon on the 1st of August. A volume of St. Augustine lay open on the reading table. He had shelved it properly the evening before. The page displayed text about souls unable to find rest. The following morning, 3 more books were similarly arranged. I examined the library for signs of entry. All windows remained latched from within. The single door showed no marks of forced entry. The key stays with Prior Edmund, who secures it each night. I remained hidden in the library through the night of August 12th. At 2 hours past midnight, I heard movement in the darkness. My lantern revealed nothing when I raised it. The sound was of pages turning, yet no hands touched the books. I approached the reading table where the sound originated. The movement ceased when I drew near. I felt a coldness pass beside me, as though something moved away. Returning to my position, the page turning resumed. This continued until dawn, sounds with no visible source. When light came, I found 5 volumes arranged on the table, all open to passages about unquiet spirits and unfinished earthly duties. I interviewed each monk individually. Brother Thomas mentioned seeing a figure in the library 3 nights prior. It appeared as a robed form, indistinct in the lamplight. When he called out, it faded like morning mist. Brother Peter reported finding pages marked with water stains. The marks appeared as tears, though no moisture could explain their presence. Prior Edmund revealed that a monk had passed in the library 2 months earlier. Brother William had been copying manuscripts when his heart failed. He died at the reading table, quill still in hand. His final work was a commentary on souls awaiting judgment. I blessed the library with holy water at Prior Edmund's request. The books remained undisturbed for 2 days. On the 3rd day, the phenomenon returned. Now volumes are found open daily. The messages continue. Passages about waiting, watching, unfinished work. Brother William's copying desk is never disturbed, yet the books he was transcribing appear most frequently. The monks pray for his soul each morning. Still, the library keeps its nightly visitor. Constable William Thorne Charterhouse, Clerkenwell, London, 14th August, 1547. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, Charterhouse records confirm. Brother William's death on June 2nd, 1547. His unfinished manuscript remains in the library's collection. Modern librarians report books occasionally found open despite secure evening procedures. The passages consistently relate to themes of incomplete duty and eternal watchfulness. End of file. Case file NOA 1792K. Classification: Theatre Manager's Statement. Date of Statement: 3rd February 1792. Location: Drury Lane Theatre, Covent Garden, London Statement. Regarding theatre disturbances, I, Richard Ashford, manager of the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, record these events for official documentation. Our theatre has stood for over a century, witness to countless performances. In recent months, the actors refuse to rehearse in the upper galleries. They claim to hear voices when no audience is present. The sounds begin softly, whispers from empty seats. At first, only 1 or 2 performers mentioned it. Now, every member of the company reports the same phenomenon. The whispers increase when dramatic scenes are performed. They seem to respond to the dialogue spoken on stage. Miss Elizabeth Winters was first to hear distinct words. She was rehearsing Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene alone. From the darkness above, a voice repeated her lines back to her. The voice matched her own exactly. Timing, inflection, emphasis. She fled the stage and refused to return until full company was present. I investigated personally, sitting in the galleries during night rehearsals. The whispering began during a tragic monologue. It surrounded me, coming from multiple directions at once. I could not distinguish individual words, only the sense of many voices overlapping. The sound carried emotion, sorrow, longing, something desperate. When the actor finished his speech, the whispers stopped immediately. I moved through the rows of seats, finding them all empty. The dust lay undisturbed on the benches. yet the presence of something remained palpable. The temperature dropped noticeably in certain sections. Row M in the upper gallery was particularly cold. I stood there, feeling watched by unseen observers. The sensation was so strong I spoke aloud, asking if anyone was present. The whispers returned instantly, now seeming to come from beside me. I heard my own name spoken, Richard, clear as day. I hastened from the gallery, my nerve finally broken. The stage crew reports objects moved during the night. Props are found in wrong positions each morning. Costumes are discovered arranged on stage as though worn by invisible actors. The most disturbing incident occurred last week. The night watchman swears he saw figures moving across the empty stage. They appeared as shadows cast by no source. They moved through the blocking of a play we were rehearsing. The positions were exact, marks the actors had not yet perfected. When he called out, the shadows dispersed like smoke. We have consulted parish records about the theatre's history. 3 actors died performing on this stage in the past century. 1 collapsed during Hamlet, another during Romeo and Juliet. A 3rd fell from the upper gallery during a performance of Macbeth. Their devotion to their craft appears to continue beyond death. The whispers persist during every performance now. Some audience members have commented on strange echoes. The actors have learned to ignore the sounds, but we all feel them there, the unseen watchers, the eternal audience. They remain bound to this place where they lived most fully. Richard Ashford, Theatre Manager. Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, Covent Garden, London. 3rd February 1792. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft Theatre. Records confirm 3 deaths between 1663 to 1788. Modern acoustics testing reveals no structural explanation for reported echoes. Several performers have refused contracts citing oppressive atmosphere in upper galleries. The phenomenon intensifies during tragedy performances, suggesting some emotional resonance with dramatic content. End of file. Case file NOA 1634P. Classification: Priest's testimony. Date of statement: 7th January 1634. Location: St. Bartholomew the Great, Smithfield, London. Testimony of unexplained phenomena. Why? Father Gregory Walsh, priest of St. Bartholomew the Great, testified to these strange occurrences. The church crypt has become a place of dread among our parish. No one will descend alone since Christmas Eve past. The disturbances began when we opened an old burial chamber for inspection. The vault had been sealed for 2 centuries. We needed to examine the foundation stones for repair work. When the mason broke the seal, cold air rushed forth. It carried a smell of earth and something else, something wrong. Inside, we found a coffin marked with symbols I did not recognize. The inscriptions were not Christian, though the burial was clearly old. We resealed the chamber immediately and sought counsel from our bishop. That night, the sounds began. Scratching came from within the crypt walls. It moved along the stonework as though something crawled behind the masonry. The verger heard it first while locking the church. He ran from the building and would not return until dawn. I descended with 2 other priests the following evening. We brought candles and holy water to bless the disturbed space. As we reached the bottom of the crypt stairs, the candles extinguished. All 3 at once, though no wind could reach us there. In the darkness, we heard breathing. It came from the direction of the sealed chamber. Heavy, labored breaths, as though something struggled for air. We fumbled to relight our candles with shaking hands. When light returned, the breathing stopped. But we all saw the same thing. Frost covered the wall where the chamber had been opened. In winter cold, yes, but this was different. The frost formed patterns, deliberate shapes like reaching fingers. We blessed the chamber and the entire crypt. We prayed for any souls who might be restless there. For 3 days, silence held. On the 4th day, a mason working above ground heard the scratching. It came from directly beneath where he stood. He felt the ground beneath his feet tremble slightly. Other workmen confirmed the sensation. The scratching now occurs both day and night. It follows a pattern. 3 long scratches, then silence, then 3 more. The sound moves through the crypt as though something circles the chamber. Parishioners report feeling watched when they pray near the crypt entrance. Several have asked to be seated elsewhere during services. The church cat refuses to enter the building now. It sits outside the door but will not cross the threshold. We have found dead birds in the churchyard, always near the crypt's ventilation grate. They show no signs of injury, as though they simply fell from the sky. I have written to Rome seeking guidance on this matter. The chamber remains sealed, but I fear the seal no longer holds what it was meant to contain. Whatever we disturbed has not returned to rest. It scratches still, measuring the boundaries of its prison. Father Gregory Walsh, St. Bartholomew the Great, Smithfield, London, 7th January 1634. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Church records show. The chamber was sealed in 1434, following an outbreak of plague. The non-Christian symbols mentioned have never been documented, and no description survives. Modern ground-penetrating radar reveals anomalous voids beneath the crypt. Parishioners continue to report unusual sensations near the sealed chamber's location. End of file. Case file NOA1756D. Classification: Magistrate's testimony. Date of statement: 19th October 1756. Location: Old Bailey, Central London. Official testimony. Regarding court disturbances, I, Magistrate Henry Blackwood, provide this testimony concerning recent disturbances at the Old Bailey. For 3 weeks, voices have been heard in courtroom 3. They speak when the room stands empty. The court ushers first reported the phenomenon. While preparing the room before dawn, they heard arguments from within. Upon opening the door, they found the chamber vacant. Yet as they entered, the voices ceased abruptly. I dismissed this as imagination until I heard it myself. I was reviewing documents in my chambers late one evening. From the courtroom next door, I heard heated debate. 2 voices, male, engaged in fierce legal argument. The exchange concerned a murder trial. One voice accused, the other defended with passionate denial. I recognized the cadence of courtroom rhetoric. I opened the connecting door immediately. The voices stopped as though cut by a knife. The courtroom was empty, lit only by moonlight through the windows. The air felt thick, heavy with tension. I walked to the witness box where the voices had seemed strongest. The wood was warm to my touch, as though hands had recently gripped it. I questioned every usher and clerk the following morning. No one had been in the building past 8 o'clock. I had locked the doors myself. The voices returned 3 nights later. This time, other magistrates heard them too. We stood outside courtroom 3, listening to a trial unfold within. The examination of witnesses, the presentation of evidence, the final arguments, all proceeded as though an actual court was in session. We opened the door together. Silence greeted us, but something else too, a coldness that should not exist in October. Our breath showed white in the air. The jury box benches bore impressions, as though recently occupied. yet dust lay undisturbed across the seats. I ordered research into trials held in that courtroom. The records revealed a murder case from 1722. A man named Edmund Thorne stood accused of killing his business partner. He maintained his innocence throughout the proceedings. The trial lasted 7 days, ending in a guilty verdict. Thorne was hanged at Tyburn the following week. His final words proclaimed his innocence and cursed the court for its injustice. The voices we hear match the descriptions from that trial. One accuses in harsh tones, unwavering in certainty. The other defends desperately, pleading for belief. The argument never concludes. It simply stops when we enter, then resumes when we depart. The pattern continues without variation or resolution. Courtroom 3 has been closed for new trials. None will serve as jury there after dark. The voices remain, eternally locked in their unending contest. Justice denied, they say, can never rest. Magistrate Henry Blackwood, Old Bailey, Central London, 19th October, 1756. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, court records confirm the Thorne trial details exactly as described. Later evidence suggested Thorne may have been innocent. The actual murderer confessed on his deathbed in 1735. Courtroom 3 was renovated in 1789, but reports of voices persisted until the building's demolition. No recording equipment has captured the voices, though multiple witnesses corroborate their existence. End of file. Case file NOA1813F. Classification: Asylum. Director's medical notes. Date of statement: 11th May, 1813. Location: Bethnal Green Asylum, East London. Medical documentation of patient manifestations. I, Dr. Sebastian Carr, Director of Bethnal Green Asylum, document this extraordinary case. A patient admitted in April presents symptoms beyond medical explanation. She was brought from Whitechapel after being found in a state of severe distress. The woman, aged 32, claimed something followed her from Spitalfields Market. She spoke of a presence that attached itself to her 3 weeks prior. At first, she felt only watched, a sensation of eyes upon her constantly. Then came the whispers in rooms she knew to be empty, words she could not quite distinguish, spoken just below comprehension. The presence grew bolder as days passed. She began seeing shadows move independently of any light source. They would cross her vision peripherally, vanishing when she turned. Her family noticed objects in their home relocating. Small items, keys, coins, buttons, would appear in impossible locations. A thimble was found inside a sealed barn jar. A letter opener appeared atop a wardrobe no one could reach. The woman's sleep deteriorated completely. She woke each night at precisely 3 o'clock. In that moment, she felt weight upon her bed. An invisible presence sat beside her, depressing the mattress. She could feel its coldness through the blankets. When she tried to rise, she found herself unable to move. Paralysis held her until the sensation lifted minutes later. Her terror grew until her mind began fracturing under the strain. We observe her closely here, in rooms shared with other patients. The phenomena continue unabated by change of location. Her belongings move when she sleeps. Other patients refuse to occupy the bed beside hers. They claim to see a figure standing there in darkness. It appears as a darker shadow against the night. Patient observation notes record cold spots near her bed. The temperature drops measurably when the presence manifests. Several nurses have felt unseen hands brush against them in her ward. The woman has begun speaking to something we cannot see. She holds conversations with empty air beside her bed. Her side of the dialogue suggests something questions her. She responds as though interrogated, her answers fearful and pleading. We have attempted various treatments to ease her mind. None have diminished the phenomena she experiences. The presence, whatever its nature, shows no sign of departing. It remains attached to her, constant and inescapable. She begs us to make it leave. We possess no means to do so. Traditional medicine offers no treatment for haunting. The patient weakens daily, worn down by sleeplessness and fear. Yet the entity persists, bound to her by means we cannot understand. Dr. Sebastian Carr, Director, Bethnal Green Asylum, East London, 11th May, 1813 archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Patient records end in June 1813 with no indication of recovery or release. Asylum staff documented similar phenomena with 3 other patients over subsequent decades, all involving persistent attachments by unseen entities. Modern psychology would classify this as shared delusion, yet the physical manifestations, temperature changes, object displacement, remain unexplained. End of file. Case file NOA 1593L. Classification Naval Officer's Account. Date of statement 28th September 1593. Location Greenwich Palace, Greenwich, London. Account of maritime haunting. I, Captain Robert Dennison, Naval Officer to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, record this account of strange events. I was granted quarters at Greenwich Palace while awaiting new ship assignment. My room overlooked the Thames, situated in the palace's eastern wing. The first night passed without incident, though I slept poorly. The second night, I woke to the sound of water. It seemed to drip steadily, as though from a leak. I rose to investigate, finding all surfaces dry. The sound continued surrounding me in the darkness, drip by drip, with the rhythm of a slow leak. I lit my candle and searched thoroughly. The walls, ceiling, floor, all were perfectly dry, yet the dripping persisted throughout my search. As suddenly as it began, the sound ceased. I returned to bed, unsettled but exhausted. Sleep came again, but troubled by dreams of drowning. I woke gasping, my chest tight, as though underwater. The sensation faded slowly as I sat up. My room had grown intensely cold. The Thames beyond my window showed no mist or fog. Yet inside, my breath clouded the air. I saw frost forming on the inside of the window glass. The third night brought more severe disturbances. The dripping began earlier, just after midnight. This time, I heard other sounds with it, a creaking like ship timbers straining in a storm. The room seemed to sway slightly, as though on water. I gripped my bed frame, fighting the sensation. The sounds grew louder, water rushing, wood groaning. I heard voices crying out, desperate and afraid. They called for help in the manner of drowning men. The cries overlapped, creating a chorus of terror. Then came silence, sudden and complete. The cold remained, but the sounds vanished. I questioned the palace staff the following morning. An old servant revealed that my room once belonged to a naval commander. He had lost his ship with all hands in a storm 40 years prior. The vessel sank in the channel during a winter gale. 130 men were lost that night. The commander survived, being ashore when disaster struck. He lived in my room afterward, consumed by guilt and grief. Servants reported he would wake screaming, calling out names. He died there 10 years later, heart seized in his sleep. Since then, others have reported the same sounds. The dripping water, the groaning timbers, the cries of drowning sailors. Some have felt the room sway as though at sea. The cold comes always, like deep ocean water. I requested different quarters immediately. My request was granted without question. The room has stood mostly empty since. Few will sleep there willingly. The sounds continue for those brave or foolish enough to try. The commander and his lost crew remain, trapped in their final moments. Captain Robert Dennison, naval officer, Greenwich Palace, Greenwich, London, 28th September 1593. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Naval records confirm the loss of HMS Fortitude in January 1553 with all hands. Commander Thomas Hayes survived but never returned to sea duty. Death records show he passed in Greenwich Palace chambers in 1563. Modern occupants of the renovated room report no phenomena, though the original structure was demolished in 1660. End of file. Case file NOA 1748R. Classification: Shopkeeper's written testimony. Date of statement: 1st December 1748. Location: Fleet Street, Central London. Written account of business disturbances. I, William Hodge, proprietor of a printing shop on Fleet Street. Write this account with full mind and sound judgment. My shop has operated for 15 years without incident. We print newspapers, pamphlets, and books for London's reading public. Last month, we acquired new premises next door to expand operations. The building had stood empty for several years. Previous tenants departed without explanation. I learned why within days of moving our equipment there. The sounds began immediately, footsteps on the floor above. Our workspace occupies the ground floor only. The upper story remains empty, used only for storage, yet the footsteps pace regularly back and forth. They follow the same path repeatedly. 7 steps forward, a pause, 7 steps back. The pattern never varies, hour after hour. My apprentices refuse to work alone in the new building. They claim the footsteps seem to follow them when they move. I investigated the upper floor personally. The dust lay thick and undisturbed. No footprints marked the boards where we heard constant pacing. I stood perfectly still, listening. The footsteps continued around me. They passed within feet of where I stood. I felt a presence moving past, though nothing visible appeared. The air stirred slightly, as though something displaced it. We attempted to continue work despite the disturbance. Then the printed sheets began appearing wrong. Pages we set carefully in order were found rearranged. Text appeared backward on sheets that had been correct. Letters were found scattered, spelling words we had not set. The words were always the same: help me or remember me. My master printer, who has worked with me for a decade, saw something. He was working late, setting type by lamplight. A figure appeared at the edge of his vision. It stood near the window, motionless. He turned to look directly, and it vanished. But he described it clearly. A man in old-fashioned dress. The figure wore clothing from perhaps 50 years past. Its face was indistinct, features blurred as though seen through water. We questioned neighbors about the building's history. An elderly woman recalled a printer who had worked there long ago. He had fallen on hard times, lost his business to debt. She remembered him pacing upstairs when his shop stood empty. He would walk back and forth, measuring his ruined space. The man took his own life there, though she knew no details of method. His body was found by the landlord weeks later. The building was sold quickly. The circumstances kept quiet. Since then, no tenant has remained longer than months. All report the same phenomena: footsteps, disturbed work, the watching presence. We continue to use the space despite these occurrences. Business demands overcome our unease, but the pacing never stops. The printer remains, measuring his loss again and again. No rest comes to one who died in such despair. William Hodge, proprietor, Fleet Street, Central London. 1st December, 1748. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft Parish. Records confirm a printer's death in the Fleet Street building in 1698. Circumstances recorded vaguely as melancholy. The building was demolished in 1802, but residents of the current structure report occasional unexplained sounds. The pattern of 7 steps matches the width of the original upper workroom. End of file. Case file NOA 1827 N. Classification: Hospital Nurse's Statement. Date of statement: 23rd June 1827. Location: Guy's Hospital, Southwark, London. Statement: regarding ward disturbances. I, Nurse Margaret Collins, provide this statement regarding events in Ward 7. I have served at Guy's Hospital for 12 years. I am not given to fanciful thinking or nervous disposition. What I report occurred over several weeks with multiple witnesses. Ward 7 houses patients recovering from serious ailments. The ward contains 20 beds, arranged in 2 rows of 10. Bed 14 has become a source of distress for patients and staff. No patient will occupy it willingly. Those placed there request transfer within hours. They all report the same experience. During night hours, they feel someone sit on the foot of their bed. The mattress depresses visibly under this weight. The impression remains for several minutes before releasing. Patients describe feeling watched intensely during these episodes. Some report coldness moving up the bed toward them. Others see a shadowy form seated where they feel the pressure. The figure appears female, wearing what seems to be a nurse's uniform, but the details remain unclear, as though viewed through fog. When patients call for help, the presence vanishes immediately. I witnessed this phenomenon myself last week. I was checking patients during my night rounds. As I approached bed 14, I saw clear depression of the bedding. The patient, an elderly man recovering from pneumonia, lay perfectly still. His eyes were wide with terror. I could see the weight upon his bed, though nothing visible caused it. I spoke firmly, stating that no one should be present. The depression lifted instantly, as though someone had risen. I felt something move past me, a coldness and sense of displacement. The patient wept with relief. He described feeling completely unable to move while the presence sat there. Other nurses have had similar experiences in Ward 7. Sister Davies saw the figure standing beside bed 14 at dawn. It faced the bed, motionless, before fading from view. Nurse Roberts felt unseen hands touch her shoulder while attending that bed. She turned to find no one within reach. We searched hospital records for explanation. A nurse named Catherine Price worked in Ward 7 from 1801 to 1804. She tended patients with exceptional devotion. Records note her particular attention to the most seriously ill. She would sit with them through difficult nights. Her care was credited with saving many lives. Catherine died of typhoid fever contracted from a patient. She passed in 1804, still relatively young. Her final words expressed worry for her patients. Staff at the time reported her asking who would watch over them now. The current Ward 7 occupies the same space as the old ward. Bed 14 sits precisely where Catherine's favoured vigil location was. She seems to continue her duties, unable or unwilling to cease her care. Patients feel threatened by her presence, not understanding her intent. But those who know the story see it differently. She watches still, eternal in her devoted nursing. Death did not release her from duty she chose freely. Nurse Margaret Collins. Guy's Hospital, Southwark, London, 23rd June, 1827. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft Hospital records confirm Catherine Price's service and death. Staff continued reporting phenomena around bed 14 until the ward's renovation in 1891. Modern Guy's Hospital occupies different buildings, but maintenance workers occasionally report sensations of being watched in storage areas built over the old ward location. End of file. Case file. NOA 1672H. Classification. Church Warden's Record. Date of statement 16th March 1672. Location St. Paul's Cathedral, Central London. Record of unexplained occurrences I, Thomas Winters, Church Warden of St. Paul's Cathedral. Set down this record for ecclesiastical review. The cathedral choir has been disturbed by strange sounds during practice. For 6 weeks, a voice has joined their singing. It blends with the choir, but comes from no living throat. The voice is pure and clear, carrying notes no human should reach. Choir Master Davies first noticed it during evening rehearsal. A soprano note extended beyond any singer's breath. It soared above the choir, perfect and ethereal. He stopped the singers to identify the source. All had ceased, yet the note continued for several seconds. The sound came from the area near the altar. We investigated thoroughly, finding no one present. The phenomenon repeated during the next rehearsal. This time, multiple witnesses heard it clearly. The voice sang in harmony with the choir throughout an entire hymn. It knew every word, every note, as though long practiced. When the choir stopped, the voice continued briefly. It sang alone, filling the vast cathedral with its beauty. Then silence fell, sudden and complete. I consulted cathedral records going back many years. A chorister named Elizabeth Ashton sang here from 1645 to 1649. She possessed an extraordinary soprano voice. Contemporary accounts described it as angelic. Elizabeth died of a sudden illness at age 19. She collapsed during a performance of a sacred work. Her final breath was spent singing. Witnesses said she completed her phrase before falling. The last note she sang was the same note we hear now. It is the high note of the hymn, O Come, All Ye Faithful. The voice joins the choir only when this hymn is sung. At the crucial moment, the ethereal soprano soars above all others. Some choir members find it beautiful and feel honored. Others find it deeply unsettling, this voice from beyond death. Choir Master Davies has come to expect it now. He times the hymn to accommodate the additional voice. The congregation hears it too, though most assume it comes from the living choir. Those who know better recognize it for what it is. A singer who cannot leave her final performance. Her voice remains, eternally bound to the music she loved. Death silenced her body, but freed her voice to sing forever. Thomas Winters, Church Warden, St. Paul's Cathedral, Central London, 16th March, 1672. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Cathedral records confirm Elizabeth Ashton's service and death. The original St. Paul's burned in the Great Fire of 1666. But witnesses reported similar phenomena in the new cathedral after 1697. Modern recordings during performances occasionally capture unexplained vocal anomalies during religious works. Acoustics engineers find no structural explanation. End of file. Case file NOA 1715. W classification. Schoolmaster's report. Date of statement 9th July 1715. Location Christ's Hospital School, Newgate Street, London. Report of schoolroom disturbances. Master Jonathan Prescott, schoolmaster at Christ's Hospital School, report these concerning events. My classroom occupies the second floor of the school's west wing. I instruct boys aged 9 to 12 in Latin and mathematics. 3 weeks ago, one of my students, young Peter Marsh, complained of being watched. He said it began when he stayed late to complete his lessons. The feeling grew stronger as other boys departed. When alone in the room, he sensed a presence near the window. I attributed this to imagination and fatigue. Then other boys reported the same sensation. All described feeling watched from the same location. The window area became a place of dread for them. Several refused to sit at the desks nearest that spot. I observed the classroom carefully during subsequent days. Nothing unusual appeared in daylight hours. One evening, I remained after the boys departed. I wished to experience what they described. As twilight dimmed the room, I understood their fear. A coldness emanated from near the window. The air felt different there, heavier, somehow occupied. I saw nothing with my eyes, yet I felt absolutely certain someone stood there. The sensation was powerful, undeniable. I felt observed, studied, as though being evaluated. The presence held no threat, but neither did it feel benign. It simply watched, patient and eternal in its vigil. I inquired with the school's older staff about the room's history. A porter who had served 30 years told me this. A boy died in that classroom many years before my tenure. His name was Samuel Price, aged 11. He collapsed during Latin recitation in winter of 1689. The physician said his heart simply ceased. Samuel fell near the window, in the spot where the coldness now manifests. The porter remembered him as a diligent, quiet student. He loved his studies and spent extra hours with his books. His death devastated his teachers and fellow pupils. Since then, some have reported seeing a boy's figure in that classroom. It appears during late afternoon, when shadows lengthen. The figure stands near the window, head bowed as though studying. It never moves or responds to calls. After several moments, it fades like morning mist. I have not seen this apparition myself, but the presence I felt was real beyond doubt. Something remains in that classroom. It watches the boys study, perhaps missing its own chance to learn. The students have grown somewhat accustomed to the phenomenon. They leave that desk empty now, by unspoken agreement. The presence seems satisfied with this arrangement. It watches from its corner, eternal student of an endless lesson. Master Jonathan Prescott, schoolmaster, Christ's Hospital School, Newgate Street, London, 9th July 1715. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft School. Records confirm Samuel Price's enrollment and death. The school moved to new premises in 1902, but teachers at the original site reported similar phenomena until demolition. The sensation of being watched by an unseen observer in educational settings appears repeatedly in NOA archives, suggesting strong emotional attachment to places of learning. End of file. Case file NOA 1586T. Classification. Museum Curator's Notes. Date of statement: 4th April, 1586. Location: Royal College of Physicians, Amina Corner, London. Curator's documentation of artifact disturbances. Why? Dr. Henry Caldwell, Curator of Medical Specimens at the Royal College of Physicians, document these inexplicable events. Our collection includes preserved specimens for medical study and instruction. Among these is a jar containing a human heart. The specimen dates from 1531, preserved in spirits. It belonged to a physician who died under controversial circumstances. Dr. Marcus Whitby was accused of improper medical practices. The accusations were never proven, but suspicion followed him. He died suddenly, and his heart was preserved by colleagues. They wished to study the organ of one who practiced questionable medicine. The jar has resided in our collection for 55 years. Last month, we reorganized our specimen room. The heart was moved to a new shelf location. The following morning, the jar was found returned to its original position. We assumed a colleague had relocated it without informing me. I moved it again, noting the change in our ledger. The next day, it had moved back once more. This pattern continued for a week. Each morning, the jar occupied its original shelf. No one admitted to moving it. I began marking the jar's position before leaving each evening. The marks revealed the jar moved during night hours. We locked the specimen room securely. Still, the jar relocated itself. One evening, I hid myself in the room to observe. At midnight, I heard glass sliding across wood. The jar was moving. It traveled slowly along the shelf, as though pushed by invisible hands. The movement was deliberate, purposeful. The jar navigated around other specimens. It reached its preferred location and stopped. I emerged from hiding, thoroughly unnerved. The jar sat precisely where it had resided for decades. I attempted to communicate with whatever force moved it. I spoke aloud, asking if the spirit of Dr. Whitby was present. The temperature in the room dropped markedly. My breath showed white in the candlelight. A sound came from near the jar, a whisper, barely audible. I could not distinguish words, only a sense of urgency. The presence felt desperate, needing something. I examined the original shelf location carefully. Behind where the jar had sat for 50 years, I found a gap in the wall panels. Hidden there was a rolled parchment, old and brittle. The document was Dr. Whitby's own testament. It detailed his medical work, defending his practices. He described treatments that seemed unusual for his time, but reading his notes, I recognized innovation, not impropriety. His methods were simply ahead of their era. The accusations against him were unfounded, born of ignorance and jealousy. This testament would have cleared his name had it been found earlier. Since discovering the document, the jar remains where placed. The nightly relocations have ceased. Dr. Whitby's vindication, even 55 years late, brought him peace. His heart rests quietly now, its truth finally revealed. Dr. Henry Caldwell, Curator, Royal College of Physicians, Amen Corner, London, 4th April, 1586. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, College Records, confirm Dr. Whitby's membership and death. His testament is now part of the archive, demonstrating medical understanding remarkably advanced for 1531. The preserved heart remained in the collection until 1768, with no further disturbances reported. The specimen was eventually destroyed when the original college building burned in 1666. End of file. Case closed to public record. The original document remains sealed within the vaults of the British Museum. The NOA archive remains committed to documenting phenomena that defy conventional understanding. These cases are submitted for academic review and further investigation. Further access requires written authorization or curiosity strong enough to ignore the warnings. Until next time, these are the National Occult Archives.